If you constantly feel like you're behind in life, like everyone else received a map and you didn't, like time is moving forward and somehow you're still trying to catch up, stop for a moment. Because what if that feeling isn't evidence of failure, but evidence of awareness? And stay with me until the very end, because the final truth may completely change how you interpret your timeline, your pace, and this quiet phase of your life. There is a very specific kind of anxiety that doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't look like a breakdown. It doesn't look like crisis. It looks normal. You wake up, you go to work, you make plans, you try to improve, you try to stay disciplined. From the outside, you are functioning, but internally, there's a quiet comparison running in the background, a constant mental calculation. They're further, they figured it out. I should be there by now. What am I doing wrong? And the worst part? There's no clear answer. You're not doing nothing. You're trying. You're learning. You're adjusting. But you don't feel acceleration. You don't feel the breakthrough. You don't feel ahead. There was someone who lived in this state for years. They weren't lazy. They weren't reckless. They were thoughtful, careful, introspective. But that introspection turned into pressure. Every time they saw someone their age succeed, it felt like a reminder. Every time someone announced a milestone, it felt like a clock ticking louder. And eventually, they internalized a belief: I am behind. But here's the first thing most people don't question. Behind compared to what? Who defined the timeline? Was it based on your values? Or based on what you've seen repeatedly online? We live in a culture of visible milestones, engagements, promotions, businesses, fitness transformations, financial wins. But internal stability, emotional maturity, self-trust, those don't trend. And because they don't trend, we don't measure them. The person who felt behind began noticing something strange. Externally, their life looked similar to last year. But internally, they weren't the same. They reacted less impulsively. They didn't spiral as quickly. They didn't chase every opportunity out of fear of missing out. They paused more. They reflected more. They chose more carefully. And yet, they still felt behind. Why? Because the world measures speed, but internal growth measures depth. And depth is quiet. There's something psychologically important here. When you spend years in survival mode, chasing, comparing, proving, your nervous system becomes addicted to urgency. Urgency feels like progress. Intensity feels like growth. Constant movement feels like improvement. So when life becomes steady, when there isn't a dramatic breakthrough, when things are calmer, your brain interprets calm as stagnation. But calm is not stagnation. Calm is regulation. And regulation is powerful. Many people who feel behind are actually in a stabilization phase. Stabilization feels slow. It feels uneventful. It feels like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, something massive is happening. Your emotional baseline is shifting. Your reactions are softening. Your tolerance for uncertainty is expanding. Your sense of identity is reorganizing. But because none of that produces a flashy result, you discount it. There's another layer. People who often feel behind tend to have high internal standards. They imagine a future version of themselves that is clear, confident, financially secure, emotionally grounded. Then they compare their present self to that image. But that image is fictional. It has no bad days, no confusion, no hesitation. You are comparing a human to an idealized projection, and then punishing yourself for the gap. The person in the story eventually realized that their feeling of being behind was rooted in one thing: comparison without context. They were comparing their internal process to someone else's visible outcome. You see someone's promotion. You don't see their 5 years of doubt. You see someone's business. You don't see their failures. You see someone's confidence. You don't see the therapy sessions, the setbacks, the quiet battles. You compare your backstage to their highlight reel, and then you feel late. But what if you're not late? What if you're restructuring? There is a phase in life where you outgrow your old identity but haven't fully stepped into your new one yet. It's uncomfortable. It feels like floating. You're not who you were, but you're not fully who you're becoming. And that in-between phase feels like delay, but it's actually integration. The person who felt behind asked a new question one day. Instead of asking, "Why am I not further?" they asked, "What have I stopped doing?" They had stopped reacting instantly. They had stopped needing constant validation. They had stopped chasing every shiny opportunity. They had stopped comparing daily. They had stopped living in panic mode. That's not stagnation. That's evolution. Here's something rarely said. Sometimes the biggest growth in your life is invisible because it's subtractive. You're not adding more. You're removing chaos. You're removing impulsiveness. You're removing insecurity-driven decisions. You're removing urgency. And subtraction feels like nothing. But subtraction creates space. And space creates clarity. And clarity creates better decisions. And better decisions change everything. Slowly, quietly, without applause. If you feel behind, ask yourself something honest. Are you actually stuck? Or are you just not living in chaos anymore? Are you actually failing? Or are you just no longer sprinting blindly? Are you actually late? Or are you simply building something more stable than what you see online? Fast growth is impressive, but it's fragile. Slow growth is stable, and stability lasts. The person who once felt behind eventually stopped measuring themselves by external milestones. They started measuring themselves by internal shifts. How quickly do I recover from setbacks? How calmly do I respond to uncertainty? How often do I act from clarity instead of fear? Those metrics changed. And when those metrics changed, their life trajectory quietly shifted. Because the truth is this: you are not required to grow loudly. You are not required to move at someone else's pace. You are not required to prove your progress in visible ways. Sometimes the most powerful growth feels like stillness. Sometimes it feels like nothing is changing because you're no longer burning yourself out. And here's the truth I promised at the beginning. Feeling behind is often a sign that you are conscious. You are aware of your potential. You are aware of time. You are aware of your expectations. But awareness without compassion turns into self-attack. And self-attack creates pressure. And pressure makes you rush. And rushing destabilizes you. What if instead of attacking yourself for being behind, you respected the phase you're in? What if this slower season is strengthening your emotional foundation so that when acceleration comes, you don't collapse under it? Because acceleration will come. Opportunities will come. Breakthroughs will come. But without internal structure, they break you. With structure, they elevate you. If you are calmer than you were a year ago, that's growth. If you recover from disappointment faster than before, that's growth. If you compare yourself slightly less than last year, that's growth. If you are choosing carefully instead of reacting urgently, that's growth. It may not look like a milestone, but it is structural transformation. And structural transformation changes your life permanently. So if you feel behind right now, pause. Look deeper. Maybe you're not behind. Maybe you're stabilizing. Maybe you're building roots. And roots grow slowly. They grow underground. They grow without recognition. But when the wind comes, and it always comes, roots determine whether you stand. You are not late to your own life. You are not required to match someone else's timeline. You are not obligated to live loudly to be growing. Quiet growth doesn't explode. It anchors. And once you are anchored, when your moment comes, you won't crumble. Because this time you didn't just grow fast. You grew deep. And depth always outlasts speed.